Hi, pal. How you doing? Tony Lockwood here. We're in Cleveland, Ohio, at CAASE 18. I got an interesting discussion coming up. Please introduce yourself to the readers and tell us who you are, where you're from, and some of the stuff, some of the products and services you offer to the world.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. My name's Jarrett. I'm with Kinetic Vision in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we're an R&D consulting firm in Cincinnati. We've been doing modeling and simulation for about 30 years, and we're just happy to be here at CAASE 18. NAFEMS and DE have been doing a great job of getting the word out there to help both experts who are already using simulation get together, and then also create a platform where people who are newer to this technology can come in and embrace it.
That's pretty much the goal. Now, you guys, I was spending some time on your website, and they do everything, almost everything. I didn't see anything about baking muffins,
No.
but you had structural, thermal, you have expertise all over the place. Structural, thermal, fluid, multi-physics, or just one area. That just begins to touch it. That can help you with concept development, industrial design, prototyping, application and software development, industrial scanning, stuff for the Internet of Things. You even have I think, don't you have a new squad doing augmented reality and virtual reality?
Yeah, and in fact, I'm doing a talk on that on Thursday.
Visual communications was your launch pad long ago, 30 years ago.
Yeah. So, it sounds like a mixed bag of stuff, but
They're all together.
if you look at the product development cycle, from innovation all the way to, putting a product on the shelf, really all we do is take the latest digital tools and support that whole process. So if you look at innovation in industrial design, well, you can use virtual reality to pick up your product, put it on a shelf, see it in a new environment, understand where the user is gazing when they interact with your product, how much force, the kinematics behind it, all the way down, through pilot when you might need modeling and simulation, and then when you go to market that product, you can step back and get back into visualization again and use augmented or virtual reality apps. So it does seem like a mixed bag of things, but it's there to support the whole digital process.
No, and I think it's a good example of how all this stuff works together.
Yeah.
Too, that they're really not isolated technologies, which. It's just great stuff. You provide all sorts of services. What are your clients craving for, struggling with? What did they ask you to do that might scare you a little bit? Oh, they want to do that. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I think that our customers, their biggest challenge is believing that these technologies work. Mm-hmm. If you look at a simulation model, how can I believe it's going to give me the right answer? The FEA guy that I used 5 years ago gave us back a report, and the force was, 2x different than what I got off of the test. Mm-hmm. And so, that is where I see these are all new technologies. They feel a little unproven, although modeling and simulation has had a 40-year history, 20 out in industry, right? So, that's the piece where it's a challenge to just communicate with them and get them over the hump of these technologies can get you the answer they need, mm-hmm. But you might have to take some care and do some things like CT scan your existing product, measure it very carefully, build a model of that, simulate it, go back and match it up with physical test, and take your time to validate it. Right. And that's not going to be a fast process. You want to do that first, but now that you've done that, you almost have this digital capital equipment testing piece. It's like mm-hmm. a digital tool that you can use to now on any of your products. So that's the big challenge, is just looking for that patience. The other thing that I see that's really missing is in adopting these new technologies, you really need to ratchet up the communication inside your own culture, because you'll have somebody who says, hey, we're embracing the culture of modeling and simulation, we're going to start doing more of it, we're going to use it as a predictive tool, we're going to use it as a design tool, and then they have somebody over here who runs off and does their own thing, they get the wrong answer, and they go, oh, this is garbage, I'm not going to use this.
Right.
And so having those job functions in there that are communicating across those groups and bringing them back together so that they're all thinking about the same digital tools in the same way, and they use each other in a way that makes that valuable is important. So that's the cultural challenge is sometimes the biggest challenge.
Yeah, it is. Which a big buzzword these days is democratizing simulation around it. I imagine you really run into a lot of cultural issues with that. Give me a little riff on that. Or how you work with
if you
that?
think about democratization, it's a big part of the American culture.
Right.
I mean, you can really just draw the parallel there. You cannot support a great democracy without a great culture.
Right.
So it's the same thing for modeling and simulation. And I think we're getting there, but it's a challenge, and especially if you look at the types of folks that are involved in these high technology tools, sometimes the job function of running the technology and the type of personality and skill set needed for that is a little bit different than the personality needed to build a culture. And so I think organizations that are trying to build that culture and embrace these technologies need to realize that you need somebody who can be a great analyst, but then you also need somebody who can be a great communicator and can help build a culture, and those two things work together, and sometimes it has to be different people, and that's okay.
Yeah, how has there's so much action going on in hardware these days, the HPC, HPC on demand. I was talking to some gentleman from Penguin Computing recently. That must be really affecting both you and your clients, that whole change. I would believe for the better. But,
yes, I mean it's for the better. So if you look at that whole, there are different lenses for how HPC and cloud HPC are perceived. Some people perceive cloud HPC as very expensive, and that's because, it's a lot more expensive than running bare metal inside.
Right.
But if you look at an organization like ours, who does things on a project basis, it's actually to be able to flex up and use 1,000 cores on something for a week and then be able to flex back down, it actually comes at a very good value, especially with preemptive computing from some of the big providers like Google. So that it's really a great resource, and we're just going to see the cost come down, right? They're going to keep coming down. It's going to become more affordable. The big thing, the big bogey out there that really is getting solved now, which is super exciting to me, is on-demand licensing. On-demand licensing from the commercial software vendors is critical, and we're seeing that. That's happening. There are leaders and there are laggers, but they're
all coming up with some sort of scheme.
They're all coming up with some sort of scheme, and then what that's going to allow is, for companies like us, that's great. We're doing consulting work project by project. It's a fantastic model because we can do a big problem for a customer that lasts a month, and we don't have to buy 2 years of a commercial software package.
Right.
As you can tell, I'm trying not to throw anybody under the bus here.
No, because they're all good packages, but
that's
you
right.
don't want to.
That's right. But for for big enterprise companies, this is not a huge issue. They can afford to buy licenses in bulk, and they can get the big discounts. But for what NAFEMS and DE are trying to do here in the democratization track, trying to get modeling and simulation as a core tool, having it at a small, scalable price where somebody can try it out, introduce it into their culture, and get some quick wins where they can show a financial benefit against their product. That's where we're going to see the big benefit, and with the end users having more adoption. So I see, scalable computing and scalable licensing as really a way to drive greater adoption, and I think those are going to be the key.
Now, you have international base of clients. You're not just the Cincinnati and
That's right.
Hebron, Kentucky area. Yeah. And are the issues being faced in the U.S., North America? Are they facing different ones in the European area, the Pacific Rim, or stuff? Or is it really the same story?
No, I mean, yeah, it is a little bit different. I would say the Europe and the U.S. are kind of in the same playing field when it comes to modeling and simulation, the HPC. In fact, NAFEMS is quite a bit more established in Europe than it was here in the United States.
Yeah.
But I'd say that those are kind of on the same playing field, maybe with the European community being a little more mature from a modeling and simulation standpoint. I think that in Asia, we're in South America, we're seeing a great interest in modeling and simulation. Mm-hmm. And the really cool thing about those markets is that when it comes to producing products, they're starting to really nationalize themselves and producing their own products for their own markets. They have a chance to start from scratch.
Right, yeah. It's just like the old telecom days. They skipped laying the copper.
That's right.
They went right to the...
Right. And here in the United States, we're still pulling the copper out every time we lay the fiber, right?
Yeah,
so here, now they don't have to tear out that copper, right? They don't have to say, hey, we've been doing it with physical test stands, year after year, and we're going to rely on physical test data. They have a chance to, do it, in the Middle East especially. You look at, countries like Saudi Arabia, where they're really trying to build an infrastructure from scratch. They have the ability to start with modeling and simulation, put that practice in place as part of their production program. Where here in the United States, it's very hard to let it go.
Correct.
Yeah.
Very hard. And it's going to be hard to let you go, but I want you to give us your web address so that people can go check you out, because it's a fascinating website. You got all sorts of interesting information on there. And so that address is?
It's kinetic-vision.com. And once again, we're in Cincinnati, Ohio, and thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for coming, and I will have that web address available for those of you who are slow with your manual word processor. You can just contact the DE editor's mail drop, and we'll make sure that you get it. And I want to thank you very much, German.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Have fun. Thanks, pal.